defeats that we can turn into victories and, all that stuff. And it's good to be with you. If you have never tuned in, this is a show where we talk about life in those big areas of how we feel, depression and anxiety and stresses and addictions and blah, 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 all that kind of yucky stuff. But, we need to talk about it, or we might be trying to help somebody that is experiencing all that, because all of us do at some point. That's what the statistics show, that sometime in your life, you're going to bump into one of these things, one of these clinical issues like depression or anxiety, etc. So we talk about it. Second big area, our relationships, all things relational, marriage, dating, parenting, in-laws, extended family, bosses, dogs, everything, all that stuff relational, which is where so much of actually the first category comes from, right? A lot of times we're depressed because stuff's not going well over there. And then the third area, reaching our goals and dreams. And all those are areas of life that I tend to hang out a lot in, being a psychologist and also a fellow traveler on this road called life. And so we talk about it. Now, the way we do that is you call us here, and I say us because you're talking to the whole audience, because you share your story, and then we all learn as we go through it together. So here's the number: 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774 to get on the program. And I'm going to be taking your calls in a little bit. We let the lines fill up, and usually in the beginning of the program, I share a thought, which I'm going to be doing after a couple of announcements. Those of you who attended the depression, online event last week, we had a 2-hour webinar on depression. We will be repeating that. And that's so if you didn't miss it the first time, you can still sign up for that by going to boundaries.me/depression. If you did attend the first one, then you're going to be automatically included. Basically what happened was I was in Austin last week, and with the power outage, we had some interruptions in the broadcast, and we finished it, but it was kind of bumpy sometimes. So we're going to repeat that and doing that soon. You'll be getting notice about that. And also we're going to be having an online dating event, a 2-hour webinar on all things dating. We get a lot of calls about dating. It's one of my favorite topics. I've written a couple of books on it. How to get a date worth keeping. That tends to kind of be the two problems we have. How to get a date. I say we, I'm married. I can't do this anymore. But how to get a date worth keeping. Like, people are not, they're not getting any dates. They're trying and they're not getting any dates. So that's one problem. Second problem is some people are getting dates, but they're not worth keeping, right? You're not liking the people you find kind of that you're running into or attracted to. That might be a problem, or that, all of that stuff. So that's what we're going to cover. That'll be March 24th, and you can get the early bird discount if you sign up right now at boundaries.me/dating. Okay. So having said all that, one more reminder, go to boundaries.me. If you've never looked at it, log in, become a subscriber for free. You get a free trial, and then you can look at the whole world there. There's, we're going on, I think, over 80 courses now on all sorts of things that we talk about here on the program and in life. So check it out, boundaries.me. Now, having said all that, before we go to the calls, I want to talk about something that I kind of remember pretty vividly the day this happened to me. And obviously, this is something that we kind of experience through life, hopefully. But sometimes we experience it, but we don't experience the experience to where it becomes a paradigm shifter. And that's what this concept is. This will literally change your life. And I'm not kidding. This can literally change your life. And that is this sentence: life will change when you learn that you can learn. Life will change when you learn that you can learn. So, what in the world does that mean? And isn't that obvious? Well, kind of, but not. So, here's what I mean. Pretty much everybody knows. Excuse me, I have a little throat issue today. Everybody knows that we can learn, right? But many, many times in the areas of obstacles in life, and this is where the psychology of this gets really, really fascinating. When we are going through life and there's really no obstacles, or we don't hit a wall, or it's not like something we can't make work, whatever. Most of the time, we just kind of, oh yeah, I got to figure out, you know, how to drive across town, or I got to find that restaurant, and we kind of learn. We go through life learning. But in the areas where you feel like you hit obstacles a lot of times, or you have an idea, I wish I could do this or that, but I really don't have the capacity or the ability. So we hit that obstacle and we give up. Kind of a learned helplessness thing. When you realize in those arenas, when you realize, when you learn, not learn, but when you learn that you can learn, then limits kind of like begin to go away, like all around in so many areas. Like some people, I mean, even take something like parenting. Some people think, well, I'm not, it just doesn't work. I'm not a good parent, or I can't get my kid under control, their behavior, and this, that, and the other. Kind of frustrating and kind of feel helpless. But what if they had wait a minute, I remember in other areas, I've learned that when I hit an obstacle, I can learn. I can figure out how to do this. There are sources available. There are people with answers. I could go do this instead of staying stuck. Now, this might sound obvious, but it's really, really not. Really, really, really not. And it can make us able to accomplish some of our dreams that we feel unable to accomplish. I remember, I had a dream way back when. I wanted to do a faith-based psychiatric hospital. Now, I knew how to treat people. I knew about how to integrate faith into treatment and spiritual growth into treating depression, anxiety, eating disorders, addictions, all of that. I knew how to do the doctor part of it, but I wanted to have a hospital that I had total control of in terms of the culture and the milieu and how it operated and what the programming was and all the groups and this, that, and the other. And basically, most clinicians, I mean, all of us, normally if you're going to admit somebody to a hospital, the hospital exists. It has all of its programs and this and the other. You admit your patient, you treat them, but you kind of fit into, and you hope you have a good hospital to put people in. Well, I thought, and there wasn't a lot being done in the faith arena. In fact, a lot of times people go into a psych unit and the hospital see the faith as part of the problem instead of the answer. So I wanted to have control of a whole hospital where we could do this in the way that I wanted to do it. Well, I knew about the treatment. I didn't know anything about running a hospital. I didn't know anything about buying a hospital. But I had recently had this awakening in my life on some other things that I had had to go learn to do that I wanted to do. Wait a minute, I don't know how to do that, but I've learned I could learn how. So I went out and found the people that could teach me, how do you raise money for a venture that big? What do the investors want from it, for example? And if that model fails, how can I approach existing hospitals to do what I want to do within theirs and all this kind of stuff? And I remember thinking that was such a big breakthrough for me personally, that you don't have to know everything. You just have to know that whatever you don't know, you can go learn, or you can find somebody that knows and they can teach you, and it can be done. I remember when I first moved to California as a graduate student, and I was thinking, trying to figure out where am I going to live and how you do this. And gosh, I would like to have a little place where I could, but I had no money. And then somebody told me, well, you don't have to have money to buy a little place. I go, of course you do. And they go, no, you don't. You can learn how to do that. And I didn't know how to do that. I started taking workshops on how do you buy no money down properties and all that kind of stuff, and learning about this. And I just, that may be the place where I learned to that you can learn. So here's what I'm telling you. I don't know what you're facing today, but if you're feeling you're at the end of a cul-de-sac in some situation in life and you feel stuck, ask yourself this question. Is it possible that I've come to the end of my ability, and instead of waving the white flag, I need to learn that I could learn more about this? Knowledge is power. And we begin to really learn that the obstacle may not be an obstacle because there are people that don't live with those obstacles. And if they can do it, we can probably learn how to do it. And I found this is in a lot of arenas in life. So I guess what I'm saying is God has given us the capacity to learn. Sometimes when we run into an obstacle, we don't realize this doesn't have to be the end. I could go find out how to get through this obstacle, how to get around it, through other options, how to solve this problem. Somebody knows how to do this, and I've just got to go find them and get them to teach me. So I don't know what arena it is in your life. It could be clinically. I talk to people all the time in the healthcare system who run into obstacles until they begin to go research it, and they find out, oh, there's more options available to me than I thought there was in all sorts of areas. Anyway, think about that. Think about that. The next time you hit an obstacle, ask yourself, I don't know how to do this, or especially when you have a dream, I don't know how to do that, but I could learn how to do it. I don't know how to do it today, but I've learned that things I don't know, I can learn. The capacity to learn makes life's obstacles oftentimes begin to disappear. Okay? Try that. Here's our number: 844 940 2774. 844 940 2774. Okay, let's go to the phones. Jasmine, who's calling us from Tennessee. Jasmine, welcome to the program. How can I help you?
Hi. So what you were just talking about and feeling stuck is definitely something I've felt stuck, and I've dealt with a lot of mental health issues for
Mm.
over 10 years now, since middle school.
Oh,
And
wow.
for a long
So
time,
how old are
yeah,
you now? How old are you
I'm
now?
23. I'm
23.
23. Yes. And so for a long time, it was that I felt stuck, and it was almost like I didn't know how to even go about helping myself.
Yeah.
But now it's become that I feel stuck, and I've also become comfortable in being stuck. So the problem isn't knowing that I can get help and make changes. It's become like I'm afraid of the unknown and living a healthy life
Oh, and
because
how
I don't
did
know
you
myself
identify that?
without it.
How did you
I'm sorry,
identify
what?
that? How did you
Well, I was
realize
just
that I could get better, but I'm kind of afraid to get better? What made you have that awareness? It's a common one, by the way. I remember a lady one time in a group. You're going to love this,
mhm.
Jasmine. we're talking about a bunch of stuff, and she goes, my problem is, I think I know I live in hell, but I don't want to move because I know the names of all the streets.
It's
She
like
said,
I know it. Yeah.
I know how to operate in this dysfunctional world that I live in. I know the rules. I can make it. She says, if I start going being healthy with all these health, I got to learn a bunch of new stuff, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, so what
Yeah. Mhm.
what gave you this awareness? This is really, really cool.
Well, I've, seen counselors and gone to treatment centers over the years, and um, I I
For
want
what
to get help.
diagnosis?
Anxiety and depression. I was most recently diagnosed with bipolar 2, but I've known it to be depression and anxiety for the most part.
Okay.
Um, and so it's just become that I've been thinking about, after I get the help, what is life going to look like? Of course, I still am going to have struggles. It's not going to be like, you know, I magically don't struggle anymore, because I'm a human and I will. But how do I just try to think of the difference that it's going to be. And then, sorry, it started in middle school, which, is right around the time where people are growing up and becoming independent and learning about who they are without their parents and without,
Yeah.
growing up.
Yep.
And so I feel like I missed that in a few ways, in many ways. And so,
Do you
yeah,
live with
it's
your
just been
parents
like,
now?
yes, I currently do still live with my mother. My father passed away in 2017.
He passed away in 17, so that was what, 4 years ago?
2017. Yes,
Okay. And do you feel heavily dependent on your mother?
I do. I do. I depend on her for everything.
It sounds like it. What I was going to ask you, it's interesting because as you describe this fantasy that you have, that
Mm-hmm.
when I, and there was like this, when I learn this stuff or when I get this help, then, and the way you described it, it was almost like competency, agency, being able equals horrible, horrible abandonment and isolation.
Mm,
Do you fear
yeah,
that? Like you'll
definitely.
totally be out there on your own.
Definitely. Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Um, I have dealt with abandonment issues. I am adopted. It
Oh,
the situation was the best it could have been, because I know my birth mom's side of the family. And I was wanted. My birth mom, just, she herself had mental illness, a mental illness, and it was different in the sense of, she just sometimes isn't in reality.
and what age were you adopted?
Too.
Two. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay. But you can relate to what I'm saying, that somehow you've kind of got this thing of almost like independence equals abandonment, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know you, so I'm just sort of thinking out loud. But developmentally, what we always look at is when a trauma happens to a child or a human, but in childhood,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are developmental milestones that we're going through, just like when you're building a house, right?
Yeah.
So um, if somebody is building a house and they lay the foundation and then they put the frame of the house up, right? And then a
Mm-hmm.
tornado comes through. Well, the frame, which isn't finished, it's not
Yeah.
secure yet, it's going to get blown away. because that's when the tornado hit. Whatever you're working on at that time is what's going to get damaged. So
Mhm.
what happens in a 2-year-old's life? They are learning independent functioning. That's the first time.
That's true.
Huh?
Mhm. I said
What's
that's
that?
true. Yes.
Yeah. They're learning, they're exploring the world. They're learning all this. They're almost, in the words that you put it earlier, they're getting to, you know, like being able to negotiate the world on our own. The phrase we use developmentally for toddlers is they're finding, the world is my oyster, right? But they're doing that in the
Yes.
security of a relationship. And so what happens when we get wired in the correct way is we learn that when I become independent, I don't lose my support and attachments. I just learn to have freedom and competency within them. All
Mm.
right. It's
Yeah.
also the same thing that gets experienced in the what we call the latency years, or used to call the latency years of middle school, as you said it, when that kind of next round of that sort of kicks in. And so
Mhm.
it I think that as you're describing this fear, one of the things that I would want you to really, really, really get in your head in core belief kind of way is, wow, I can learn and become independent and get healthy and have support. I can
Mm.
learn and get independent and get competent and have just as much support as I did. Because it sounds like those two are divided in your head, possibly.
Definitely. And do you think that that could
And
be
there,
maybe?
so don't lose that thought, but I just wanted to focus on
No.
something that you
Yeah.
said because you kept saying kind of after, right? Once I get help,
Mhm.
once I get the help, all that. Sort of like there's a
Mhm.
runway to it on an aircraft carrier. If I haven't hit my stride, I'm going into the ocean, right? Well, life's
Yes.
not like
Yes.
that. Life's not like that.
Mhm.
You're going to go through the next, you know, what, 70, 80 years more, probably,
Mhm.
I mean, you're young, you'll be living to 150 by then, but however long. And if you stay connected to mentors and coaches and all that, then getting healthy is just
Mhm.
going to be a celebratory thing. Every single week, you get better and you get to celebrate it with the people that are helping you. So I'd want you to figure out a
True.
support system that's not going to disappear while you get healthy.
Definitely. I agree.
So, and I interrupted you on an earlier thought you had.
No, you're fine. I guess I was just gonna ask, could that be confused when um, the people in your support system, there's a little bit of inconsistency with the support when I was growing up and now? I don't.
Well, it could
Um,
be because that is just one more. When support disappears, then now
mhm.
we're on our own too much without support. It's
Mhm.
that either or thing, right? Look, we need in life, there's no way in God's green earth that I could be sitting here right now, even talking to you, apart from the community of support and help that I feel like I have in my life. That's what makes us healthy and able.
True.
So yeah, that could have that's a big part of that. So I want you to get it in your head. I'm gonna go get healthy and I'm gonna have support all along the way and after for the rest of my life. And get those
Mm.
two glued together where you have connection and independence, dependency and independence. It's a both and, it's not an either or.
It's very true.
All righty.
Yes. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
well, thank you for your call. You really, and thank you for sharing the courage of your story. To deal with a lot of stuff in all those areas for so many years and coming out, and, hitting the next path like you have. It's really really cool to see. And if you struggle with depression and anxiety, then I want you to stay on the line. Albie's going to get your information. I'm going to send you both our depression and our anxiety workshops, and you might enjoy those. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. My gift to you. Thanks for your call.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye. It's so fascinating how uh, we don't realize that dependency never ends. You don't grow up and become a self sustaining entity. What you do is you outgrow the ways in which you depended on someone to do things that normally, age appropriately, a human being can do for themselves. Okay. That's what independence means. As a child gains independence, what do? Send them off to school. Go carry your own books. Figure out what your homework is. But that doesn't mean you don't come back home and get nurtured and nourished and cheered on and coached and all of that. But if I was talking to my daughters when they were little, no, I'm not going to do your homework for you. You're going to do your homework. And after that, let's go play, right? I'm not disappearing from your life. I'm just not going to, you know, keep doing stuff I used to do when you were younger. So independence should never, ever, ever equal isolation or abandonment. One of the things I work with several companies that have franchise operations in various industries, from Wall Street to others, and they have, there's sort of the mothership, and then there are, dealers and retailers and all this kind of stuff in a variety of industries. One of my favorite phrases when people go into a business like that, okay, where there's some kind of franchise, for example, one of my favorite phrases, because I think this goes with the created order of how how God made life to work, is the phrase, you can be, the good thing about your model, I tell them, is you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. For yourself, you own it, you run it, you're responsible. If it fails, it's on you, independent results, but you're not by yourself. You have the mothership, you have their training, you have their experience, all of that. And that's a pretty good way, I think, to think about life itself. We should never be by ourselves, but we should always be learning that we can learn, as I was talking about earlier, to get to greater and greater achievement. So it's a both and, always, always, always. Okay, let's go to Melissa, who's calling us from the great state of Texas, somewhere down there. Melissa, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, how can I help you?
Well, I just have a question for you. When there is a repeated behavior in a marriage that's not okay, and boundaries have been set but crossed, how do you set boundaries with consequences once the person doesn't? It's like they don't even take you seriously when you. I don't know how else to say it. So my husband and I we get into arguments, and he'll leave. I mean, he gets so angry that he leaves for like a week, sometimes two.
Wow. Wow.
Communication is
What are these
very
arguments
limited.
about that would cause him to not want to be there for 2 weeks?
They can be different things. An issue that I've brought to him, and it just escalates. And there's other things that need to be addressed. I've asked him to go to counseling, on several different occasions. We've been married for 4 years, and he just refuses. So nothing really gets resolved, and there's just that repeating. Go ahead.
Okay, let me ask this again. What kind of thing would make him leave for 2 weeks? You said a lot of different things, but I'd like some specifics, because I've seen people leave over spilled milk, and I've seen people leave because a spouse has blown through the budget and run up, gazillions of dollars on a credit card. So what are we talking about? What triggers it?
So I'll bring an issue to him. Let's say something as finances, or or maybe something like a behavior that he's done, like he'll stay all week, late for working late all week. And I'll go to tell him, honey, I know you're doing a lot of things at the office, but would it be possible for us to do something together this weekend? And so somehow or another, that argument turns into, or that issue that I'm talking to him about turns into an argument.
That's a request. It's not an issue. It's a request, right?
Yes. Okay. So, it's like he'll tell me, I'm here in the evening. There's always something that he's done. He's not taking responsibility for being at the office, late all week. So then he'll get on the defensive, and I'll try to tell him, I was just sharing how I felt about something, and then they just escalate from that point.
So he takes that as a criticism?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Was that the main pattern on these arguments?
Yes.
So you'll bring up something he feels that as you're down on him in some way. You're criticizing him. You're saying he did something bad. He shouldn't have done this. You ought to be doing differently. Stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay. And then he disappears.
Yes.
And then he comes back. And what happens?
Sometimes, like I said, there's limited communication. And about day 4, I'll get an email that says, that he's hurting, and that he's really sorry, and that he's had this he's had a conversation with God, or he's had an epiphany that he wants our marriage to work. It's not going to be easy, and it's like this cycling pattern that happens, and I don't want, and I'm in one of those cycles right now, and I don't want him to come home and it not be different, or the situation not be different.
Okay. Well, so why don't you say that? Why don't you say, I agree with you. I'm committed to our marriage too. I want it to work. But we're in a pattern. And what we do is we'll have an argument. And then when you leave, it leaves me here, which is not fun. And then you're hurt and you go away. And then that starts to hurt and you come back. And then we just kind of do it again. So this time, I want us to do something different. Which I would think would mean to get some help. Because it sounds like, he's got a juxtaposition here of he's moving away, and it is really, really almost, this isn't 100%, but most of the times, if somebody is moving away, there's some way in which they feel wounded or threatened, in some way. It's we move towards, we move against, and we move away. Those are kind of the 3 things we do. And if he moves away, there's something so, for lack of a better word, overwhelmingly traumatizing about that he's got to just escape, right? And then he escapes. That gives him the distance on this, and then his emotional regulation begins to come back, and then he feels the attachment, and he begins to want to move towards you again, which tells me that he does have the capacity for connection. He does have the capacity to invest in you. And my hunch is you've seen that. Is that right?
Mhm.
So we're not dealing with a
Yeah.
hardened like sociopath here. We're dealing with somebody that's wounded.
Oh.
Right?
Yes. Yes. I'm just.
Okay.
I am just exhausted with the cycle.
No doubt. And that wounds you. I'm not minimizing your pain at all. I'm just saying when you start to think about options, the options are very
Mhm.
different for somebody who actually is vulnerable like he is than somebody who's invulnerable. Okay. And so I think what's important is when you communicate with him that you're speaking into that vulnerability because actually that's actually the side of him that we want to show up at the table.
Mhm.
And so at the same time, and this is why I said when I'm kind of modeled how to talk to him, I say, well, you're hurt and you leave, but that hurts me. So you've got pain in this too. When you leave me for a week or two, that feels horrible. And I can't continue to be in this pattern. And so this time, I want I want to understand what hurts so bad in a discussion that you would run from the person that loves you. Okay. What hurts so bad? Try to get to that vulnerability. But secondly, and here's where to take care of your pain is very important, where you make the requirement, but you know what? This time we're going to agree that we're going to go get some help. And if you leave again, then one of the options that you have, Melissa, if you leave again, then I won't be here until you decide to get some help with me. Because this is a cycle that's got to be addressed. And I think when you have a boundary or a limit or whatever, that you've got to have some requirements with that. And you say, I just don't want us to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So this time, if you come back, here's kind of here's kind of the way that I need for it to work. So I would just have some requirements and consequences with it, but I would do it empathically because my guess is, I don't know him, but my guess is that he's more vulnerable than sometimes his kind of angry stuff can look like.
Mhm. Is it okay to tell him at this point that because like I said, it's been cycled. Is it okay to just say that you need to go get some help before we try this again?
Well, you could. I don't know how many times and what all's been tried and this and the other, but ultimately
Right.
that kind of has to be what happens, right? We can't just continue to compete to repeat the same thing. And so I
Mhm.
don't want to just go back into the same thing again. But I probably wouldn't say you need to go get some help. I would say we need to get some help
Okay.
because that this happens in a context. And I think the counselor, there needs to be somebody working on the marriage. Now, I think he does need probably his own help as well,
Mhm.
because to experience a question and a request to be together is so persecutory that he would have to escape. There's something going on in him that 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 is tapping into something, and I think
Right.
that that needs his help. Yes, that needs some
And
help.
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I would.
Okay.
You don't
Thank
want to
you.
repeat a cycle. You don't want to keep doing the same thing. So yeah, I want you back here. I didn't want you to leave to begin with, but if you're going to be here, then we're going to get some help because I don't want to go through this again. That's kind of
Mhm.
that's what I would request. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. Some of these things get, uh, sometimes when people really, really move away, um, we want to look for things. That's why I said that I think it's important for him to get some help because, this could be trauma based. It could be a lot of stuff going on that really, really is helpable if, we can get him to come do that, come get some help. Okay. Let's go to, where are we here? Corey, calling us from Southern California. Corey, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Changes That Heal, I think, is the best book that I've ever read. So
Oh
I
my
appreciate
gosh.
that.
Well, thank you for that. I'm
Hands
glad that
down.
you found it. Glad you found it helpful.
So my question is in regards to a new concept that I think has come out, spiritual abuse, because I haven't been familiar with it.
Oh.
I'm a pastor, and if I have another pastor from another town has expressed, hey, I've done something that is unforgivable, whether it be an affair, looking at pornography.
Wait a
I
minute. What
want to
is
be
that?
able.
I don't know. I don't know what unforgivable means
I think to them, it would be
to them.
anything that it. Yes. Yeah, I'm not talking in hypotheticals.
Yeah, I
Like
didn't know if
I'm
it would
putting
mean
myself.
that you would see it that way, or if he experienced it that way, or people would tell him
Oh,
that it's
yeah.
unforgivable.
No, I
I
think
just
it's
don't know.
from his.
There's not. There's
Sure,
nothing unforgivable if somebody wants forgiveness, right? So
absolutely. He would foresee it as unforgivable.
okay, so he's really in a trap here, feeling
Yes,
bad about something he's done, right?
and the tension is do I go forward and admit this to my elders and my leadership with the potential of losing my livelihood? Because there's a repentant heart, there's a desire to make things better, but at the same time, he doesn't want to lose everything that he has, especially with being able to support his family as well. His wife
Mm-hmm.
and him want to work it out, but it's,
Oh, his
do I
wife
encourage him?
knows what he did?
Yes.
Hmm. That's
So
good. So it's not
do I?
unforgivable to her.
No.
That's
So
great.
do I encourage him to go to his leadership and to express this, knowing that the possible repercussions are him losing his job or possibility of, on the other side, future spiritual abuse if things continue to happen?
What do you mean future spiritual abuse if things continue to happen?
So if because we all have our hang-ups, and so if he ends up, so if not cheating on his wife, it's some other sin that ends up having repercussions on his flock.
Oh, I see. Okay. So by
Yes,
continuing in this, he could hurt a lot of people.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. Um, uh, you know, I that is the point, right? Let me ask you a couple of questions first. One is how how far along is he in any kind of restoration process, just personally? What did he do, by the way?
An affair.
An affair?
Yeah, and
Okay. Was
pornography.
and how long ago was the affair?
The affair was about 6 months ago. Pornography is, I think, since um, his whole life, is
Okay.
what
And
I
the
understand.
affair was the affair he ended it 6 months ago?
I think he got caught.
Oh, who caught him?
I think it's his wife.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it's not, so what has he done to get well, to come clean, to
Counseling. So he's in counseling, and then I believe both of them are doing counseling as well.
Okay. Well, in general, I don't know all, but there's a couple of problematic scenarios here. To me, the way that I look at this, one is it doesn't sound like to me he's really done.
Sure.
So what I mean is he's not. There are people, lots of people. I mean, people go through horrible stuff, but then they say, you know what, I got an issue, I need to go deal with that, and they deal with that, and then they're kind of on top of it, and then actually after that, they can have the most incredible ministries to helping other people because they have gone through something and now they're able to show how they got better and they can. So I don't believe in this one thing disqualifies somebody for life kind of thing. I think what disqualifies somebody is not being qualified, right? Not being healthy, not being in the
Sure.
process that makes everybody healthy. One of my favorite verses or passages is is when Jesus told Peter that he was going to go deny him 3 times. You're going to fail me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Peter's going, I would never do that, this and the other. Jesus actually said, you're going to do this, but then after you have returned, you will be the source of strength for many. And when you look at the books that Peter wrote in the New Testament, such books about character, and all of that. So my one of my biggest things I want to highlight here with him is it doesn't sound like he's ready or should even be really probably functioning in the capacity that he's functioning in now. Right?
Yeah, and that's where, again, my
Yeah.
question to you would be, so should he go to his leadership team and tell them that,
Well,
with the possibility of them saying, well, because you're not fit, we're going to let you go?
Well,
And
and here's the other issue. Here's the other issue that he also has a risk of, probably significant risk of this woman is going to come forward.
Sure.
Right? And so it's always going to be a lot better when he confesses than somebody calls him out. So, I mean, the things you've told me, I would think if he, actively involved in an affair and got caught and still is, got this, it sounds like porn addiction or whatever. That's really what elders are supposed to be there for, is to help people and figure out, okay, so where do we go from here? And to construct a really good restoration kind of healing process for him to be able to get well and do well. So that's probably the way I would think about it. And you're right. You're right. He might he might lose his job. He might have to find something else to do.
Sure.
What do you think?
No, I think that um, Satan does his best work in the dark. So
Yeah.
anything that can be brought to light can be definitely better for it's gonna sting at first, and it's gonna
Yeah.
have a big explosion.
And you could make the argument, well, he has brought it to the light, or it has come to light, but it's been in kind of one room. Right? It's not like
Sure. Yeah,
the whole building.
that's true.
But I would think, kind of based on what you've said, that um, what I would think would be best for him. Look, you've had an affair. You're a pastor. You're not really done with that in the healing and this and the other. And I would want him to go talk to his leadership. Say, what do you guys want to do with this? I'm surrendering to you. But that's a hard call. But that's
Yeah.
probably the best one for a lot of reasons. Okay. got to get some
Okay.
other callers.
All right.
Corey, thank you
Thanks,
for
Henry.
your
Appreciate it.
concern. Thank you for your concern for him, and also uh, where. Well, I don't want to ask where you are, where he is. I don't want to out anybody. Um, but one of the things I thought of, if you go to growthskills.org,
Uh-huh.
there's an experience that's a nonprofit that John Townsend and I, we had this thing called Ultimate Leadership as an experience for pastors and business people that lasts a week. And you do a lot of deep dive and stuff and all of this. And so we donated that to a nonprofit that operates it now, and we still are involved with it. But I think that would be a good experience for him to look at. Go to growthskills.org and look up Ultimate Leadership. And he might want to look into that to get some good healing.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate your call. Oh gosh, I remember it's an amazing verse, really. I always say one of my favorite verses, and this is one of my favorites. When Joseph discovered that Mary was pregnant, and he couldn't quite get his head around that, right? Because he knew that he hadn't done it. And so obviously he thought she had done something else. And so what it says in there is Joseph, being a righteous man, did not want to disgrace her. The kindness and the compassion of he just didn't, he didn't want to disgrace her. And I think of the woman caught in adultery that they brought to Jesus and, stone her, right? And he looked at them and said, well, any of you without sin, you throw the first one. And this whole like we forget that that our faith really is 100% grounded in 100% amnesty for all of us to come before God and say, I'm imperfect, I've screwed up. And he says, I didn't come to condemn you. That's what he said. I didn't come to judge you. I didn't come to condemn you. Just if you have issues, just come get help. Come get help. And sometimes people go in these other extremes, like, sometimes people have issues and they go, oh, well, there's forgiveness for that. Jump right back into the pulpit, but they're up there preaching about fidelity and in an affair. Well, that doesn't fit. And then other times they go, well, you failed, you're out for life. Well, that doesn't fit. So we always have to think about that grace and truth go together. And so, we think about situations like that. I would want him to be totally 100% accepted. He's coming forth and he's confessing this to his leaders. I want his leaders to come alongside him and say, well, what's the best thing for the flock here, right? But what's the best thing to help restore somebody as well? One of my favorite verses in Galatians chapter 6, it says, if any of you see somebody or know somebody that's caught up in some sort of a sin or trespass, literally the word there is a fish net. That's where the Greek word came from, like a fish gets caught in a net. People get caught up in this stuff. And it says, go and restore that person gently with kindness, looking to yourself humbly, knowing that you could fall into the same thing. We're not supposed to be above each other, judging each other. We're supposed to come alongside each other and say, dude, come on, I want to help you. Let's help you. So I hope they help him. All righty. So let's go to Giovanni. Giovanni. I can't read that. Giovanni,
Hi.
welcome to the program.
Hi. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So this is my scenario. I have a
Are you
gentleman
are you
who.
on a Bluetooth or away from the phone or something? I can't quite hear you well.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
I can hear you better now.
Okay, wonderful. My scenario is I have a gentleman that I was friends with. We met at a church, and we were just friends, mostly in group settings, but um, we were both on leadership, so there was, an aspect that we both had responsibility to the church. And so after a few months, I noticed that he was expressing interest towards me. So I thought I was a little too forward, some of the things he was saying, so I let him know, hey,
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand you. You said
Sure.
he was expressing interest in you, and then I lost the rest of it after that.
Yes, he didn't actually say I like you, but all of a sudden he started to send me like good morning beautiful texts and flirtatious texts that made me uncomfortable because, as far as I knew, we were just friends and I didn't really have interest beyond that. Or at least I didn't know, but I should let him know that I wasn't comfortable with him saying those things without stating, his intentions. But fast forward to now, a year and a half
You did
later.
tell him that? You did tell him that?
I did at the time. I told him right away, yes.
And you
So,
said, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with this because we're just friends. Or you said, I don't feel
yes.
comfortable with this unless you tell me your intentions.
Well, no, I just said because we're just friends. But in my head, I was like, it would be different if you just came out and said, I like you and we had a conversation about it. But kind of
It's
the
kind of
skating around
sideways.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you have any interest in him as more than friends?
No, I don't. Well,
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you the end part and then it'll make sense. So a year and a half later, which is now, I start
Oh,
getting messages from my friends saying that he's convinced that I'm his wife and that he would say things to them like, look at her today. She looks amazing. That's my wife. So I found out that from the day that we actually met, he had this very strong conviction that he says was from God. I was his wife. And he's been waiting for me to come to the realization that I'm his wife. But
okay.
I
So
feel
what
so
happened? What
strongly.
happened back when a year and a half ago when you told him, no, we're just friends and I just want to be friends? Did he drop it with you at that point?
Um, he did drop it. He did not press the issue.
Okay. And he
He
just
later
acted
told me
normal?
that he tried to go back to normal, yes. There was one other time that it happened a few months later. I guess just him testing the waters. And I just let him know where I was.
Good.
So fast forward when I did end up addressing the issue once my friends told me he thought we were supposed to get married, he told me that he backed up at those times, during those times because he thought that I was resisting what God was doing, and he wanted to give me an opportunity to come to the realization of what was supposed to be.
And
So,
have you seen any visions come from the sky with the two of you at the altar being lowered down from the heavens? Have you seen that?
no, I have not seen any of that. So
You haven't seen
I think no, I just
Okay.
think that the pressure of that made it all the more. I never had any interest in him, but now even if I did want to say like, okay, I'll go on a date. For me, it's scary because in his head, I'm already that
Well,
in his
wait a minute. Whoa,
mind,
whoa,
and it's
whoa.
just
Would that be something that you would be interested in? I thought you had no interest.
I don't. But as I was
Okay.
processing through it, like, would I give it a chance, even though I don't have interest? I mean, because we've had a chance to be friends, like we've had a
Yeah,
chance to
you would know by
get
now
to know
if
each
you
other.
had any interest. You've been around him a lot for a year and a half, right?
Yeah. Right.
You
Yes.
would probably know. I mean, sometimes people go, "Whoa, I never looked at you that way," but you're
Hmm.
you're pretty certain.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what's the
So I
question?
blocked him after I told him. I just wanted to. Well, I wanted to get your
I
thoughts
don't hear a
on how it
problem. I
actually.
mean, I hear him kind of, pining away and wasting a lot of time when he could get on down the road. But what? How can I help you?
Well, I want to focus more on me. This whole thing did shake me up a bit, and I realized I have some insecurities, right, as far as dating. I mean, even though I wasn't interested in him, what I realized is I have this real fear of somebody being that serious. That really alarms me. Why are you that serious? And, I just think
Well,
that
was he doing anything dangerous? Was he stalking you, or you know,
it was
like
creepy, but he wasn't dangerous. I will say that.
well, creepy in that he had it in his head that you were the one?
Yes, I would say probably monitoring, but not like in a way where I would ever be in danger.
Okay. So give me the question again. I mean, I would just, you've told him, dude, I'd probably tell him, hey, I heard the other day that you said you still think, you're holding a candle out for me. But if I were you, I'd put that thing out because we're not going anywhere.
Mm. Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you might say it nicer than that, but I don't know. But it might be interesting to say, why do you still think this? Why do you still think this? I've already said I'm not interested, and really that's not going to change, but
Mm-hmm.
but I would really encourage you, Joey, to, go find a good relationship because it's not, it's really not going to be us. I'm your friend.
Right.
Actually, I
I
really
actually
can't be your
told him.
friend though if this is going to keep going. I don't know if I
I
can. Maybe,
know.
I mean, maybe you can, but I
Yeah.
would,
Dr. Cloud,
yeah,
I
I'd
actually
be
had to block. I actually told him and blocked him. I had to just create some space for a bit. Um,
great.
yeah.
But
But
what's the
I wanted to
question?
find out. I felt so bad about that. Is it okay that I just blocked him? We did have a conversation, and I let him
No,
know.
look, you don't owe him anything. Listen, this is this is a good boundaries lesson. You don't have to apologize for not
Mm-hmm.
feeling comfortable with somebody and not wanting to be around them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
this is a pretty good little boundaries formula for everybody that's listening. Just learn to say this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable with that. I don't want to do that, and so I'm not going to. Remember
Mm-hmm.
that formula. I don't feel comfortable with blank. I don't want to do blank, and so I'm not going to. And I'm not even going to feel like I have to justify that or explain why. So in this instance, you know what? I don't really feel, after what you shared, and it's been going along a while, I don't really feel comfortable with having my social stuff open to you, because I know you're perceiving our relationship different than I am. So I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't really want to have you as a follower. And so I'm not going to do that. Period.
Mm.
Don't feel bad about it. It's like if somebody
Well,
knocks on your
thank
door, there's no obligation to open the door.
you. That's true.
Okay.
And I have one more quick little question as a follow-up because I realized that brought up in me kind of like this awareness that I have this fear of kind of, I guess, a fear of intimacy. I have not dated in lots and lots of years. And now I'm like, okay, well, this thing made me realize I want to be at least open to dating someone I am kind of interested in or, would be willing to develop that interest in. So
Right.
do you have any just like basic tips for,
To
I
being
don't
open
know.
to dating.
Open.
Is there any reason
Yeah.
why dating would be injurious to you?
Um,
I mean, peanuts are fine for most people, but some people have an allergy and they can't eat them or they get sick. So dating is fine
yeah.
for most people, but if you've been wounded in some way that hasn't been healed and it might be injurious, you might want to take care of that first before you get back out there. Is there any
No,
reason?
no, nothing happened.
Yeah,
It
it's not
doesn't
going to
happen.
hurt
I
you
would
in
just
any way.
say, yeah, no, nobody really, I've never been in a, like, any type of harmful
Yeah.
or painful relationship. It's just because I think the culture that I've been in has put so much pressure on coffee dates. So I'm like, if I
Oh
definitely don't
my
align,
gosh.
it's not going to
Are
coffee
you
date.
in one of those kind of like the courtship worlds?
Mhm.
You're kidding me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know what? I wrote a book kind of combat all that stuff. It's called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. And
Okay.
I'd suggest you read it. It
Okay.
might be helpful. And also, I'm going to gift to you a free admission to our dating seminar on March 24th, right here, having a 2-hour dating seminar. And
Oh.
is when I hang up here, Albie's going to get your info, and we're going to gift you a free ticket to that. And let me give you one little tip. You want to take the pressure off of dating, then take the pressure off of dating. So don't see dating
Mm.
as I'm going to find the one and this has to turn into something serious. See dating as I'm going for coffee. I'm going to go for dinner. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to go for a movie. We're going to get to know this person. We're going to go for a walk. There's no
Mm.
rings. Nobody's showing up with any rings. It's okay. So start
Mm-hmm.
there where there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing at stake except having a nice evening with hopefully a nice person and get to know a human and have a meaningful interaction. Awesome. Take the pressure off.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Thanks for your
Thank you
call.
so much,
And
Dr.
gosh,
Cloud.
if you're in that whole courtship, ah, read my book. Okay.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
read it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. Okay. I think we're out of time here, actually. Um, I should one day I'm going to get a clock that sits right here. I don't have one of those. I think we're at the end of the hour though, and a couple of things. There's when you look at the things we've dealt with today, um, that path of of learning and getting well, but as you get well and grow, not wanting to lose a support system because gosh, I don't want to grow up because if I grow up, then I'm going to be all by myself. Well, no, you're not. What a cool thing for all of us to begin to look at. I'm going to kind of summarize a few things here. Number one issue today was learning that you can be growing and getting stronger and still have support. Those are not mutually exclusive. Okay. Secondly, that sometimes to repeat patterns and to continue to keep the same pattern going without having some sort of limit on that pattern with some consequences and requirements is just going to keep it going. That was our second caller today. Remember when her husband would leave, come back. Well, this time say, yeah, I want you back. And here's the requirements. And, if you don't, then we'll have there's some kind of consequence. I'm not going to continue to participate in this pattern. And then another one of failure doesn't have to mean the end of your life, but what it should mean is that there's a moment there where when you're still in it, you got to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm not okay. I need some help," as we talked about, with the pastor. And then the next call, don't have to apologize for your boundaries. If some guy's decided that you're his wife and God didn't send you the memo, then it's okay to say, I didn't get the memo and I'm not interested. You don't have to apologize for that at all. Okay. So that's why I love you guys. You call and you talk about all this cool stuff, and we all get to learn from it. There's great things that happen. So thank you, callers. Thank you for all of you who continue to interact on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, the various forums. Remember, the show can be downloaded as a podcast, so you don't have to watch it on your computer or even your phone or whatever. You can go while you're going to walk the dog or driving in the car or working out. You can listen to it as a podcast. It's called the Boundaries.me podcast, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. And then a couple of announcements about our upcoming events. We have a replay of the depression event coming up, and you can go to boundaries.me/depression. It's 2 hours on the causes and the remedies, what causes depression and how we get better. Go to boundaries.me/depression. And then we have our big dating event coming up March 24th. Can't wait for that one. That's going to be fun as we talk with Giovanni about her dating life and all the issues involved in this. Boundaries.me/dating for that one. But then the one that I really get excited about, in addition to all this, is boundaries.me. And I find that as I talk to a lot of people out there, you might get our emails and you get the little morning kind of thing sometimes, or in an email, I might be on there talking about something, and you think, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I get boundaries.me," but they really don't. They don't know that just the howdy do emails from people on our list that we sent, that's not boundaries.me. Boundaries.me is a platform. So if you go to the website, www.boundaries.me, then it comes up and you can sign up to become a subscriber. And that's when you join the big platform of so many courses about all the topics we talk about here. And there's a community, and there's daily input that I send to you on a path to get relationships getting better, and emotional issues getting better, and all that stuff. So go to boundaries.me and join us as we develop this tribe to develop herd immunity against dysfunction, one dynamic at a time. As we grow, we get more immune to the dysfunction around us. I want you to do that. Okay, guys, good to be with you, and I'll see you.